Welcome back to Appliance Educator. Today we have a very special episode. We're at Nick's house here. We're going to install an OTR microwave. But if you've been watching our channel for a while, you've noticed that me and Nick are essentially learning how to do something to show you how it's done. We're just appliance educators. But today's very special as we have a special guest joining our team, an actual expert. Austin, the expert. That intro is way too good.
We never got an intro like that.
No. Anyway, why don't you walk us through what we're doing today?
Cool. So here in my kitchen, I had a recirculating hood that was hardwired into the cabinet above. So we're going to install this ZLINE OTR over the range hood and microwave all in one. So let's jump into it.
What was here before?
Before we just had a small Brown recirculating hood.
Okay.
Charcoal filter, but I wanted the counter space because I don't have much counter space to keep the microwave up. So ZLINE has a great OTR here, and it fits. So that's what we're gonna do.
Let's get started.
We're back in the first step for our install, and what we're gonna do first is look for a stud in the wall so we can place our bottom mount for the microwave. We would like to have two, but we need at least one stud to hold the support of the microwave. The microwave can weigh up to 100 pounds or so, depending on the model and make that you have. So we have our stud finder here. This is a pretty basic one, just finds, it's a magnet and it finds the screw heads in your wall. So you can feel it tug, and right there is our stud, so straight down to here. We're going to make our marks and install that plate. Let's get to it.
Sounds very good. Here we go.
So somewhere along that line is right where our stud is. So that'll be our guideline for where we're going to mount this bottom bracket. That'll go somewhere around here. But luckily we have a fancy sheet that we get to tape up, and it'll show you exactly where you need to put all the screws, anchors, and everything.
Alright, so what we did here was trim the excess on our template just so these dotted lines are butted up all the way to the bottom of our cabinet. And we'll go over why that's very important here in just a minute.
So what we did is we just taped it up here, so that way when you're aligning this back bracket for the microwave, you know exactly the height of where you need to space it, so that way it's not too high, too low, and you don't have to put a bunch of holes inside of your wall when you're mounting. So that's all we did there. So now we'll get to setting up this right here, and then we have another one that's going to go up here, so you know exactly where you need to cut to actually mount the unit, as well as place the power cord so you can get to that outlet up there. So what we're doing right now is taking this mounting bracket, aligning it up with this diagram, and then making sure that we can see our stud mark right here. You want at least 2 screws, preferably one on opposite side of it, so you can get a nice big solid grip. And then we'll put an anchor here, or an anchor here, and an anchor here as well. You need at least 2 screws into the stud just to help secure it. You can get away using 1 stud if you have 2 screws, but if you have 2 studs, one that goes along this way, one that goes along here, or 18 inches over, then that would help as well. But we just have this one right here, so we're going to use that, and that's what we'll be doing now. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to mark it. Our stud line's right here, so I'm going to put one right here and one right here. It's better to have it kind of split up, so that way if this ever gets a crack, it's not going to go directly to where this screw is here. It'll be a harder time going through the grain of the wood if it's in a different position. So before we put in the stud screws, we want to make sure that this is as level as can be, so that way your microwave is level when you've got to mount it. And as you can see, we're a little high on the right side, but we'll fix that, and then we'll put those studs in and we'll be ready to go to the top. Because this is recessed, What's going to happen is that if you don't install these filler blocks, you'll have a gap right here between the top lid where you're going to mount the screws into the microwave, and that can cause issues of the screw shearing or completely falling through this thin cabinet right here. So what we're doing is we have the same thickness as this recessed area, and we're just going to slot blocks up right here, so that way when we mount the screws will go completely through this block here. Okay, so what we have now is we have our diagram hung up, and we're going to be drilling these holes for the front mounting screws for the microwave, and then we have a big 2-inch hole that we're going to be drilling through here for the power cord. So when you mount it, that power cord will slip right up and you won't have any issues. So there's 3 circles all marked there, and we're just going to set this up with a 3/8 drill bit, and then we'll drill straight through, and when we go to push in our microwave, it should be exactly lined up so we can see the holes and put those screws into the holes and tighten that microwave up. We just got done drilling all our holes. We have the 3 mounting screws, holes all ready to go, as well as our power. Now what we're going to do is we're going to double check, because we need to make sure that this is going to be venting forward, because it's not an external vent. So we'll have to take this apart here, make sure that the fan is blowing in the correct direction. We'll put it back together, and then at that point it'll be time to mount the microwave. So I'm going to take this apart right here. Not too bad, really easy to do, and should take about 2 minutes. So this is where the fan's going to escape the air. So what we're going to do is make sure that this is venting forward, in which case it is. So we'll put it back in and remount it, and then be ready to go to the next step. Okay, so now that we're ready to mount the microwave, it's always best to have 2 people, just because it can get really heavy and it's always safer. So if you can, grab a buddy, and then when you're all ready, got all the holes done, he can just come over for 5 minutes, help you mount it, because there is going to be a time where you'll have to have pressure on the front of the microwave as soon as it's setting on this lip to make sure that it doesn't tilt forward. And at that point, it's always, again, safe to have 2 people, 1 person to hold the microwave and the other to line up the holes for the screws. Before we start on this, it's always best to make sure that when you get the microwave up and mounted at that bottom bracket, that when you push it up, you don't have to go wandering for everything. So what I do is I just take the screws that we're going to mount it with, as well as the drill or whatever you're going to use to mount these Phillips heads. So I'll put that up there, right there, and then make sure it's not covering the power cord. And then when I get up there, it'll be easy to see and line up everything. And so we'll do that now.
And we'll use the buddy system here.
System. Okay. So the way that this mounts is we're both going to lift it up, kind of tilt it forward. It's going to set on these right here. There's hooks on the bottom that it'll set on. And then as soon as you feel all of them connect into place, you can lift it up, make sure that it's not hanging or sagging on one side. And as when it's nice and level, just lift it up, and we'll slot the power cord in at the same time. Okay, so now that we have all the screws in, we're going to put this on, make sure it's nice and level, and we're sitting level, so we're good. Now we can plug it in, turn the power back on, and we should be good to go. Now we can go flip the breaker, make sure it's testing fine, and we should be good there. Depending on what's going on here, if you have a front venting like what we have here, we want to make sure that the charcoal filter is there, and the way to do that is open the door. There's a screw right here, undo that screw. And then this should slide. Nope, I lied. We got another screw over here as well. So you take out those two screws. This top panel should pop out. There we go, popped out. Make sure that your filter is in there, and you want to check that depending on how much you use the microwave every 6 months to a year and replace it. Because what will happen is this will get all chalked up in grease, and there's all the electronics back here, and that'll get chalked up in grease, and that can cause issues if you don't change this filter as recommended in the manual. So make sure to keep an eye on that and replace it when needed. Okay, so we have stuff in the microwave. We're going to go ahead and give it a test. You never want to turn on the microwave when there's no food in there, because it'll allow the magnetrons to bounce around, and it could actually go back into the machine and cause issues. So you always want to make sure that when you're using it or testing it, make sure that there's at least a cup of water in there that you can heat up.
Thank you for tuning in to our video of how to install an OTR microwave. Check us out more, like, subscribe, hit that button, and stay tuned for the Appliance Educator podcast. They'll be on our YouTube, on all the streaming platforms for you to enjoy. Stay tuned for that, and thank you for joining us. We'll catch you next time.